So, one of the questions that comes my way is like, for people that are up and coming entrepreneurs, or they have a business idea, is, how do you get started? How do you start a business? And I'm not really sure if I know the answer to that. I just know what I've done. And so like how I started Butler. A couple of preliminary things to know about me is, one is I've never had formal education. I was a terrible student. I was diagnosed with ADD when I was a kid, so I had a learning disability. And so all throughout school, I really thought I was stupid because I was learning differently than everybody else. It wasn't until after school that I realized that I just learned differently than everybody else. And once I learned how to learn and retain information, I became a lifelong student. But formal education definitely wasn't for me, because I feel like the education system, for the most part, is geared towards training the masses, and then when a person with a divergent way of thinking or a different way of learning and retaining information comes, they just feel like an outcast. And so for me, I have no formal education. I didn't take any entrepreneurship classes or business classes. I just kind of did it. The second thing is I knew from an early age that I did not want to work for anybody else. It would be a terrible, soul-sucking endeavor for me to work for corporate America, to where someone tells me where to be, what to do, how to dress, get permission to go to the bathroom, ask permission to go on vacation. If emergencies come up, I have to get someone's permission to do that. Someone's telling me not only what to do, but the best way for me to do it. And so I definitely knew that I did not want to work for anybody else. And so in saying that, I definitely have a high view of education, but I have my doubts and suspicions about formal education. In regards to entrepreneurship and owning a business. I think the top millionaires in the world are college dropouts, so I don't think that's necessary. The second thing is that you have to know that you know that you know that you don't want to work for anybody else, that you want to own your own business and be an entrepreneur. And so once you have those things kind of settled in, what I did is I would just kind of seize the opportunities that were available to me. So in 2007, for me personally, I had a radical, life-changing encounter to where I was living the party life, and I was working at a bar. I was basically getting drunk every weekend, and then I went to a church and I heard the gospel, and it changed my life. I wanted to live for God, and now I have like this crossroads in front of me to where my only source of income was working at a bar, basically getting wasted every night, and I felt like it wouldn't be honoring to God to continue doing that. So I quit my job, which didn't make financial sense because it was my only way to provide for my new wife. But I did it anyway. And so I went to my mom. I said, "Hey Mom, do you have any entry-level positions in your company?" Because my mom is an entrepreneur. She owns her own business. And so she hired me on as an entry-level employee, and I was assessing telemarketing calls because her business is in the telemarketing industry. I ended up getting a little bit more responsibility and found out that I was actually good at managing people, good at managing business, good at training people. I learned how to talk and to communicate, and really I learned how to understand how business works, how businesses had a particular service or product they wanted to sell, and that needed to be translated into like a call script to be able to explain that to people on the phone, and I was able to write scripts. And so that was super helpful for me to learn how business works and how to distill business information into a marketing message for customers. So that was helpful for me. Long story short, my mom is a serial entrepreneur, so at one point in time she had 7 small businesses that she'd started. She just would get an idea and start a business, and because I'd been elevated to her operations manager by this time, she wanted me to run the marketing for all of her businesses. I knew absolutely nothing about marketing, but I learned. I just started reading blog posts, I started watching YouTube videos, I started reading a couple of books on business, and I told her, I said, look, I can do the creative and the marketing part, but I need to hire somebody in-house to do some of the technical stuff. And so I went to a local trade school, and I asked them to send me their top candidates so that I could hire a potential webmaster intern. I did not call him a webmaster, it was an intern, but basically he would be my webmaster, someone who could do code, and at that time it was HTML, CSS, and stuff like that. So they sent me a few people, I liked one of them, and me and him became my mom's marketing department. Now, one of the questions my mom had was, what do we do when we don't need this guy anymore? All the websites are built and we're pretty much branded and you're gonna do all the ongoing marketing. I had a sneaking suspicion that other businesses needed the same type of services that my mom did. And because we had such a shoestring budget, we got really bad service working for companies that couldn't provide what we were needing. And it was real basic stuff, right? We needed a logo, we needed a website, we needed some business cards, we needed some search engine optimization, so basic digital marketing. And so I said, I think there's a need right here, because obviously we need that. So as I'm building my mom's marketing department, I'm moonlighting building Butler branding. And at that time it was called Butler Web and Design. And so by the time we were completely done with my mom's 7 small companies, I had a portfolio for Butler Web and Design of 7 projects that we had worked on, all of them my mom's projects. And we got a booth at a local women's conference, paid, I think it was like $600 for a booth there. I got some banners printed out, some business cards, and I just went for it. I said, all right, we're gonna meet some business owners at this local women's conference. And I think we got about 3 clients from that show. We got we did a really good job for them, got some good reviews. And then I started making phone calls, I started knocking on doors, I started handing out flyers, I started just doing everything I could to get my name out there. And what I found, that there was an actual need for what we were offering, and people were willing to pay me money for it. And so I hit the pavement hard for about 4 months, and it was about 4 months before I was busy enough in Butler to be able to train someone to do my other job so that I could do my business full time. And so, I guess a couple of insights from that is, one is education. Formal education isn't important, in my opinion, depending on what you want to do. However, ongoing education for sure in different ways is absolutely critical. So like I was reading books and blogs and watching videos and as much of that information as possible. Second is you have to know that you want to be an entrepreneur, and that's going to kind of guide you through the process as you go out and do it, because it's actually pretty hard. One of those things that I love is, if you want to get the results that most people will never see, then you have to do the things that most people aren't willing to do. Most people weren't willing to pick up the phone book and call local businesses to try to introduce their business. They weren't willing to knock on doors and meet new people and do the uncomfortable, awkward things. But I knew that if most people weren't willing to do that, and if I was willing to do that, then I would have an edge on my competition. And so I just went ahead and did it. And the other thing is, don't think that you have to figure everything out and have your perfect business plan ready before you go out and launch. I heard the difference between an entrepreneur and a wantrepreneur is that an entrepreneur has a really good idea, and in 2 months they're already executing on that. A wantrepreneur is someone who has a really good idea, and 2 months later that good idea is maybe a little bit better. They've added a couple things to it, but they're kind of paralyzed by paralysis by analysis. And so I would just go out and do it and kind of pick up the pieces as you go along. So for me, I don't know if it's the best way of doing it, but I built the runway as I was landing the plane. And I course corrected as I went. I learned a lot of mistakes the hard way, but I also got some mentorship, which I think would be the last piece. That's really what changed my business. It didn't help me start my business, but it changed my business, is to get mentorship to help kind of reduce my learning curve. And so one of the things that I tell my kids is that a smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from other people's mistakes. And obviously a fool, they don't learn from anybody. But I would want to be a wise person, so I'm going to get around people who've been there and done that, pick their brain and say, hey, what mistakes have you made that I can learn from so that I can shorten my learning curve and not have such a painful experience in trying to run my business. So yeah, how do you start a business? I'm not sure exactly the monolithic answer. I would say just go out there and do it.